how are you seeing them being impacted by coronavirus in terms of moving things online for those especially starting in the fall? But before that, just share a little bit about your background and what you do.
I teach at the University of Colorado Law School. I've been there for 30 years. I write a lot about higher education in general and legal education in particular. I wrote a book about 7, 8 years ago now called Don't Go to Law School Unless, which is an advice guide for people considering going to law school. And that's the kind of work that I do, at least in this area. So to address your questions, I think there's obviously a tremendous amount of uncertainty right now as to what's going to be happening in the fall. I think there are two different considerations that are kind of cutting in opposite directions. The one is that higher education historically is what's known as countercyclical economically. In other words, when economic times are tough, generally people tend to go back to school because the opportunity cost of going to school is lower than it would be otherwise. And it does look like we're now into a very considerable recession probably for the next at least few months. On the other hand, the big question, as you are implying, is it's very unclear whether people are going to be willing to pay anything like full price tuition for essentially distance learning on a mass scale. And since we don't know yet whether we're going to be able to have in-person classes yet in the fall, that creates a tremendous amount of uncertainty as to what's going to be happening with enrollment, both in law schools, but also in higher education in general.
Wow. Yeah. So it sounds like, if anything, law schools may have more reason to be stressed out right now than students, as they deal with students who may not want to pay the same amount. I actually did a poll in the LSAT Unplugged Facebook community earlier today asking, would you pay the same amount for online law school as compared to in person? And the overwhelming majority said they would not pay the same amount. They would pay much less.
Yeah, that's not surprising, and that's the kind of stuff that university administrators are looking at. And so right now we're in a position of great uncertainty. We pretty much every law school in the country went to distance learning a couple 3 weeks ago. We had to do it all of a sudden. Almost everyone who had to do it didn't really have any background in doing it. So it was a far from optimal situation, to put it mildly. On the other hand, it was obviously a triage kind of measure. It's something we had to do something. It's the midst of an emergency. Of course, it's a completely different situation in the fall when people have had 6 months to think about what do they want to do, what are they willing to pay for. Are they going to wait for regular legal education to come back?
Thanks for tuning into the show. Please subscribe if you haven't done so already to be notified of new episodes as I release them. And feel free to reach out if you need anything at all as you move forward with your prep. I'm happy to help however I can. In the meantime, I'll wish you all the best and take care.